This week, we finally got the official announcement that a new Avatar animated series is coming, after a lot of unfortunate leaks that had already spoiled a lot of the plot. But now that it's out there through official sources, it's time to talk about the show, where it's going, and the crazy mythological inspirations behind it. As Avatar approaches its 20th anniversary, it was announced that, in addition to a movie following Adult Aang, we are getting 2 seasons, that's right, 2 seasons of a new Avatar series, each with 13 episodes for a total of 26. This will undoubtedly test the waters for more Avatar shows, perhaps leading to more seasons with this generation or even a new later one. The official release for the show explains that it takes place in a future after the time of Korra, where she is not remembered as a savior, but rather a destructive figure who destroyed the world as it previously was. This event is simply described as a cataclysm. The story will focus on a young girl named Pavei discovering she is the Avatar and trying to reunite with a long-lost twin, with the big issue being that being the Avatar is no longer a good thing due to Korra's responsibility for the supposed cataclysm. This is very interesting, particularly the use of the term savior for Korra. It's obviously what the Avatar is supposed to be and is generally interpreted as in the world's history, but now the Avatar is thought of as humanity's destroyer, trying to end humanity instead of save it. Korra in particular has this weird parallel with the more spiritual aspects of savior mythology, with Korra being an important part of connecting the spiritual world to the human world and then letting them stay connected. This caused conflicts in seasons 3 and 4 as the spirit world started to enter the human world, but it ended with the world in a state of peace and developing technologically. The sequels would have more conflicts between the spirits and the humans, but of course, Korra would end up diffusing the tensions there as well. So why exactly would this cataclysm have happened? While the show doesn't call the disaster a flood, I have to imagine it's at least partially a flood due to Korra being from the Water Tribe and the show being so mythological. The flood is of course the most common disaster recorded in ancient mythology, from later sources like the Bible all the way back to the ancient Babylonian myths thousands of years before that. It's through this flood that so many of the ancient cultures were said to start over again, knocking down the large and extravagant empires that existed in the past. These empires were said to turn dark, and thus the only way to save humanity's soul was to send a flood that would set humans back developmentally, bringing them to the Stone Age and having them start society over again. Despite the sinful nature these humans are described as having before the flood in Jewish tradition, they were also said to be more closely connected to the spiritual world. It was the abuse of this power in particular that was said to anger the gods, and by making them start over without that knowledge, humans would get a second chance to earn it. In the Avatar series, I imagine that the world will be severed from the spiritual dimension after this flood, perhaps due to humans beginning to exploit the spiritual realm. In the original Korra show and the comics that followed, it was mostly about the spirits beginning to interfere with the humans and the humans fighting back. But the humans can go into the spirit world and maybe they can cause problems. The spirit world had been disconnected from the human world in the show's past, and if humans were to begin exploiting the spirit world after they've developed so far without it, it makes sense that they might have to be cut off again. I love the idea that 20 years later, this series could get even more mature than it already was. And I can see the series using these darkened versions of what the original show was while also bringing back elements that made it so cool. Whatever the Great Cataclysm was, it set the stage for a world where the Avatar isn't the Jesus figure or savior, but the devil, someone who comes down to Earth to use their powers to hurt humanity. It would make sense that to get to this point, much of the world's dynamics had to be inverted. Even deep in the ancient past, it was the spiritual world that seemed to cause the problems for the humans, with the spirits having domain over much of the earth and the humans only being able to live thanks to the protection provided by the giant lion turtles. This was the whole reason that bending and the Avatar became a thing, and it would be really interesting after all that and after all the later conflicts in Korra of spirits invading the planet, for humans to end up becoming the Dark Ones who can outpower the spirits. We already saw the slow development from their basic bending powers to the ability to attract lightning to help power their cities and create machinery. And at some point, I imagine they could develop something like the bending equivalent of some sort of nuclear bomb, something that could be a real threat to the spirit world. And with that in mind, the already powerful spirits themselves would need to sever their connection, and possibly cause the Great Cataclysm in the process. Korra, of course, is the one who wanted to keep the worlds connected instead of letting them split apart again after they were merged together at the end of Season 2, shaping much of the conflict in Seasons 3 and 4. Because of that, she may be the one blamed for the Cataclysm, even if it happened sometime after her death or just without her actual involvement. However, with Korra and Asami exploring the spirit world at the end of the series, I have to imagine Korra would would continue to dive deeper into that world and its importance, perhaps seeing why she needs to protect it over the humans when a conflict eventually arises. They definitely came back and had more adventures on the Earth as the comics describe, but it makes sense that Korra would get more deeply involved with the spirits before her death. Though of course that doesn't mean she would make the decision to hurt humanity so willy-nilly. And instead, I think the show could explore how, if she is responsible for the cataclysm, that it was in fact necessary, or even perhaps the only way to save humans from total annihilation themselves. Whatever the case, the demonization of the Avatar means that Pavei isn't a hero being welcomed everywhere she goes, but instead is just someone being hunted down, feared even, someone everyone else sees as a monster. In Korra, they definitely had some fun playing with the idea that the Avatar was irrelevant with how technology and society had advanced. But this would be a reversal of the inherent nobleness that the Avatar was believed to have. In the original series, the Avatar was revered and had been for some time. Sometimes people were upset, thinking that the Avatar had abandoned them because of his 100-year absence, and he was often hunted down thanks to the Fire Nation wanting to prevent him from saving the world. But the people as a whole did still see him as someone who could save the world. And in this new show, we'll get the opposite. We'll get to see the twins hide the secret of being the Avatar while trying to learn the different elements and unravel the truth about what really happened, while being relentlessly pursued everywhere they go and having no real safe haven. In the past, being the Avatar was something that could get you out of trouble, proving it to a random civilian, even in what seemed like the wrong place. But in this new show, it could lead to a good person trying to kill you because they think they're saving the rest of humanity by doing so. As far as what really happened, I think the revelation the twins will find in the series is that Korra had to do something dark because humans were getting out of control with the gift they weren't ready for, the spirit world. Like with the forbidden knowledge of the Garden of Eden, a flood or cataclysm would be the only way to knock humans down when they begin to abuse this knowledge. This could have been to protect the spirit world, and it could have been to stop the spirit world from trying to drop their own spiritual bomb on the earth and get rid of humans altogether so they can have it for themselves like they did in the ancient past, back when humans just lived on turtle lions and rarely ever left. What would be really fun to me, however, is not just seeing other people turn against the Avatar, but to see the Avatar's own twin turn against them. One of these twins is the reincarnation of the Avatar, technically their own person, but one who will likely blame themselves for what happened, but eventually would come to the conclusion that it's not really their own fault, that Korra and Pavei are separate people. The twin, meanwhile, will always be able to represent the counterpoint. Supposedly these are long-lost twins, and when they meet again and one is revealed to be the Avatar, the other is probably going to feel inferior, while also having their own cultural ideas about how bad the Avatar is. While it would be fun for it to be a show about two twins who travel the world and get along great, I want to believe that the conflicts of good and evil in two forms that look exactly the same is going to come into play here. I think it could even escalate to the non-Avatar twin perhaps being convinced that she could save the world by preventing the Avatar twin, Pavei, from doing whatever they end up trying to do as the Avatar. After learning the truth about Korra, maybe Pavei will begin to sympathize with her, and what Korra may have had to do to stop humans from doing something horrible and ending their own existence. And maybe Pavei has to make a similar plan, one that seems like it's hurting the world, these 7 havens, but perhaps one that will ultimately return them to their former glory of the 4 kingdoms. The show was only just announced, but there's so many different ways this could go, and whichever direction they do choose, it's bound to be interesting. But what do you guys think? For me, I'm still operating on the official information only and not the leaks. So please don't share those here and spoil it for everyone who is just keeping to the official information in the comments. We'll also probably be getting updates on Avatar at San Diego Comic-Con in the months to come, so make sure you subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our updates. See you guys next time. Man, I do love running, especially when it's away from women who are madly in love with me. But one thing I never run from is another man. Well, 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 if it isn't my arch rival, Racer Rabbit. Shady the Bat, you're here for the magic crystal as well?